Do you ever feel like it's up to you to make sure everything turns out okay? For yourself, for others, maybe even for things beyond your control? Or do you sometimes find yourself trying to keep people in line, manage events, or make sure no one gets upset because the alternative feels too uncertain, too risky, or too uncomfortable? Welcome back to A Quieting Anxiety. I'm Dr. Monica Frank with Excel at Life. Today we're exploring a common but often misunderstood experience for people with anxiety: the drive to control. Whether it's controlling situations, emotions, or even other people's behavior, the goal is usually the same: to reduce anxiety. But the more you try to control what's outside of you, the more trapped and anxious you often feel. Let's begin with a moment of mindful breathing. Inhale deeply and exhale slowly. Let your shoulders soften. Allow the tension in your jaw and around your eyes to gently release. As you settle in, imagine yourself beside a gently flowing stream. The water moves effortlessly. No force, no strain. Just a natural rhythm. Can you allow yourself to float with it for a few moments? Let go of the need to direct, to fix, to anticipate. This is your space for rest, for release, for letting go of the burdens that don't belong to you. Now let's begin to look at why anxiety drives the need for control. First, many people try to manage their anxiety symptoms by avoiding discomfort. Control becomes a strategy of prevention, trying to make sure nothing happens that could trigger anxiety. Second, control often shows up as over-responsibility. You may feel like you have to take care of others, manage their emotions, or fix their problems, so you can feel less anxious yourself. And third, some people believe they don't have any control at all, but that belief, "I can't do anything," is often a hidden form of control. It's a way of avoiding effort, risk, or failure by convincing yourself that outcomes are out of your hands. All three of these patterns are rooted in the same thing: the illusion that controlling your environment will bring relief from anxiety. But instead, it usually creates more stress, disconnection, and frustration. This need for control shows up in many ways. You might feel the urge to prevent every possible problem, to make sure others aren't upset, or to micromanage how things unfold. You might avoid telling the truth about your feelings because you don't want to cause discomfort. Or you might try to orchestrate everything in your life so there's no uncertainty. All of this is exhausting, and it doesn't work because life is uncertain. People have their own feelings. Problems will arise. Sometimes this anxiety-driven control spills over into relationships. A person with social anxiety might discourage family members from attending events or having visitors because it heightens their own fears. Someone with OCD might insist their partner or children follow strict rituals, like repeated hand washing, not because it's rational, but because it quiets their own internal alarm. A person who worries constantly might try to limit what loved ones do, simply because imagining worst-case scenarios is too distressing. These attempts to control others may feel protective, but they can create tension, resentment, and distance. And the anxiety remains because the core issue hasn't been addressed. There's a difference between healthy influence and unhealthy control. Healthy influence involves open communication, shared decisions, and mutual respect. Unhealthy control is driven by fear. It's reactive, rigid, and often disconnected from reality. True strength comes from recognizing what is and isn't within your power. I often think of people like Margie. She told me, "Everyone depends on me. I have to make sure everything is done right." But Margie's control wasn't really about competence. It was about fear. She feared that if she didn't take charge, things would fall apart. And so she did everything herself, leaving her exhausted and resentful. But at the same time, her need for control made it difficult for others to step up. Her anxiety created a cycle where she couldn't rest because she didn't believe anyone else could handle things. Then there's Alan. His belief was the opposite. He'd say, "What's the point? Nothing I do ever works out." But that too is a form of control, just in reverse. If you believe everything is out of your hands, you don't have to try. You avoid the discomfort of effort and the possibility of failure. But that mindset can leave you stuck, passive, and increasingly hopeless. Another form of control I hear often is the fear of hurting someone's feelings. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to upset them. That may sound kind, but it often reflects the belief that you're responsible for other people's emotions. That if they feel bad, you did something wrong. You're trying to control your own anxiety related to someone being upset with you. The truth is, however, everyone is responsible for their own emotional responses. You can be thoughtful and honest, but you can't prevent someone from feeling upset. Nor should you try. Feelings are part of growth, and discomfort isn't always harmful. This is especially true in close relationships. If you constantly walk on eggshells to avoid conflict or disappointment, real issues remain hidden. You don't set boundaries, you don't express your needs, and over time that can lead to resentment or even the erosion of your sense of self. Letting go of control means allowing space for real connection, where honesty, disagreement, and emotional growth can all happen. So, what does it mean to let go? It means recognizing that trying to control everything is a reaction to fear, not a path to peace. It means focusing your energy on what's actually in your control, your words, your choices, your values. And it means learning to tolerate uncertainty and discomfort without trying to manage everything or everyone around you. So, how can you change? Start by recognizing when you're trying to control other people as a way to reduce your own anxiety. This might mean limiting what others do, asking them to behave in certain ways, or even getting upset when they make choices that trigger your fears. The impulse may feel protective, but what it's really protecting is your emotional comfort. And that's something you can learn to manage internally rather than trying to change others. Begin by noticing those moments when you feel the urge to intervene or direct someone else's behavior. Then ask yourself, is this about them, or is this about how I feel? Learning to soothe your anxiety instead of managing others is a crucial step toward real control, the kind that builds confidence instead of conflict. It begins with understanding that there are different types of control. Some people develop an internal locus of control, a belief that effort leads to outcomes and that responsibility is key to success. This mindset has many strengths, but it can go too far. People with anxiety may take this belief and distort it into over-responsibility. They may try to control things that are not reasonably under their influence. The first step is to recognize the positive side of an internal locus of control. Give yourself credit for taking responsibility, for believing that your effort matters. These are admirable traits. But then ask, where might I be doing too much? Where am I trying to be responsible for something I don't actually control or should control? To evaluate this, ask yourself, even if no one else does anything, can what I do make a difference? If the answer is no, then it is not truly within your control. For instance, a mother who wants to make sure her college-age son gets to class might try waking him, reminding him, even monitoring his schedule. But if he doesn't make the effort, all of her actions won't change the outcome. What she does have control over is her response, such as deciding whether she's willing to keep paying tuition if he doesn't take responsibility. Next, if you do have some influence in a situation, ask yourself, what amount of responsibility is reasonable? A good guideline is to avoid doing more than the other person. If you're making more effort than they are, you may be tipping into over-responsibility, and that often leads to burnout, resentment, and enabling. For example, a teacher can provide clear lessons and offer help, but can't force a student to learn. Taking on more than your share creates imbalance and undermines growth, both for yourself and others. And remember, when you begin letting go of that responsibility, it's not just about trusting others. It's about managing your own anxiety. The need to control is often about your internal state, not the external situation. Letting go means learning to tolerate that anxiety without acting on it. Now let's look at the flip side, the external locus of control. This mindset attributes success or failure to luck, fate, or other people. On the surface, it might seem like a lack of responsibility, but underneath, it's often driven by fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of having to take ownership for outcomes you can't guarantee. Sometimes it's even fear of the future itself, because if you believe it's all out of your hands, you don't have to engage with it. It can feel easier in the short term because it protects you from blame, from uncertainty, from the weight of expectation. But when you expect others to behave a certain way so you can feel calm or secure, you're actually placing the responsibility for your anxiety in someone else's hands. You might not realize it, but you're giving them control over your emotional well-being, believing that if they would just act differently, you'd feel better. This creates frustration when they don't meet those expectations, and it keeps you stuck in a cycle of emotional dependence. True emotional strength comes from learning to soothe your anxiety internally, rather than relying on the external world to accommodate it. But that protection comes at a cost. It limits growth, it keeps you passive, and it disconnects you from your own power. The first step to change is recognizing the pattern. Pay attention to your self-talk. Do you often blame circumstances when things don't go well? Do you expect others to behave a certain way so you can feel okay? Do you find yourself thinking, if they just stopped doing that, I wouldn't be so anxious? These thoughts may seem reasonable in the moment, but they're signs that you may be handing over responsibility for your emotional state, placing it in the hands of other people or external conditions. When you do that, you're giving away your power. Next, begin to shift your thinking. Instead of asking others to change so you can feel better, ask yourself, what can I do to manage my anxiety right now, regardless of what they do? Shift your focus from blame or helplessness to effort and ownership. Most successful people didn't reach stability by luck. They worked through setbacks, learned to self-regulate, and kept taking initiative. That same path is available to you. And finally, take action. Even one small, uncomfortable step can begin to build momentum. Ask yourself, what is one thing I can do today to support my well-being without depending on others to change first? Every time you take responsibility for your internal experience, you reclaim your power. Not because you can control everything, but because you're choosing to participate in your life instead of avoiding it. For your reflection this week, think about a situation in your life where you've been trying to control too much, or where you give your control to others. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Then ask, what's really in my power? Let your energy shift to that, and let the rest drift away. This week, when you notice yourself stepping in, fixing, managing, or holding back, start keeping track, just a simple note or mental log, of the moments when you feel the urge to control others or blame them for your anxiety. When does it happen? What's the situation? What emotion are you trying to avoid? The goal isn't to judge yourself, it's to understand the pattern. Because the more you are aware of when and why these urges arise, the more power you have to choose a different response. You might also listen to the companion audio, Releasing the Need to Control, to help reinforce this practice. As we end today's episode, return to that image of the stream. Watch it flow, steady, effortless. Now imagine placing one of your worries, your urges to fix or manage, onto a leaf. Let it rest gently on the surface of the water, and watch as it drifts downstream, away from you. The stream doesn't need your direction. Life moves forward, even when you stop managing everything. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to trust. You are allowed to let go. Until next time, keep practicing, keep breathing, and keep moving forward.